I mentioned here Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati, and so on. And doubt might come in some minds saying that why are we worshipping if it is one Devi, why we are worshipping in multiple names, why we are worshipping as Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Parvati, Gauri, Sita, Radha, Tulsi, Gayatri, Chamunda, Mahishasuramardini, many others. That's just Devi's form. And then if you look at male forms, we have Ganesha, Rudra, Surya, Skanda, and many, many, many more. Right? Why are we worshipping in multiple forms? The answer is whichever the form we worship only one Paramatma, only one Paramatma Tattva. We see that Brahman, that Tattva in multiple forms, whether it is Ganapatya, Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shaktya, Saura Sampradaya, whichever Sampradaya we go, we all worship same Chaitanya. Ekam Sat Vipraha Sadbhuda Vadanti. The truth is only one and it appears as many. And we worship, see that as many forms. So the only one Karanavastu, only one Mula, only one substance of everything. And everything else we see that as the same one in different form. And the names are different. We call it in different forms because of, we call it different names because of different forms. Why there are different forms? Because the worshipper can imagine in that form that he or she likes and he attaches himself to. Hence, we worship anything and everything in, for example, in our Sanatana Dharma, we worship forest, mountain, rivers, trees, animals, humans, devatas, pitrus, dead, living, everything we worship, right? Moving, immovable, everything we worship. Because we see in any form, we can see devatas. And the other reason of many form is the Mula Karana, that Paramatma Vastu, is not male, it is not female, or it is not even Napumsaka. And there is no form. There is no guna, there is no quality, there is no kriya, there is no actions. And that's what is said in the Vedantas, in the Vedantas, it is said as Nirguna, Nirakara, Niravayava, Nishkriya. Only Shuddha Chaitanya, pure Chaitanya. And that is impossible to describe. That Chaitanya is impossible to describe. And that's why the Upanishads keep saying, no, neti, neti, not this, not this. So it is negatively saying that that is not Paramatma, that is not. Whatever you say, that is not, that is not. Then finally you will end up with knowing what it is. Again, Shankara Bhagavad Viveka Chudamani, for example, he goes through explaining the shlokas one after another, saying that is not, that is not, that is not, and then he explains what that Brahma was. Whatever that's left, you think now, that's what it is. So that's how the Chaitanya is described. It is omnipresent, it is all pervading, universal. That Chaitanya is mass of energy, Shakti. And there is no place where Shakti does not exist. And that Shakti is always perceived as dependent on something. It looks like it is dependent on something, though it is very independent. For example, in Agni, in fire, we see Shakti of burning. In sun, we see Shakti of light and heat. In water, we see Shakti of flow. And in wind, we see Shakti of movement. We cannot separate them. We cannot separate burning Shakti of Agni. The worship of that Shakti, separating from its dependent object, is pure Shakti's worship, Nirguna Shakti's worship. That is what is mentioned in the Shakti of Upasana. The Upasana of that Ashraya, fire for example, Agni, is Saguna form. Upasana without the Ashraya is Nirguna form, Shuddha Shakti Upasana. And the Shakti that is in all and is the root of all, that Shakti is known as Parashakti. And in the Vedanta, same is called as Brahman. So we know Brahman, we call Brahman. It is not the Chaturmukha Brahma, the four-faced Brahma, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, it is Brahman. So that Brahman is same as Parashakti. And the Jnanis see this Brahman everywhere and everything. That's why they see in forest or in movable or immovable, they see everything. However, for Mandadikaris or even Madhyamadikaris, that is like us, dull, who has not achieved that stage, who are still in samsara, struggling, and we are still in this maya. For us, there needs to be something to experience with our sense organs. We can see, we can feel, we can touch. Otherwise, it is not possible for us to realize, even come close to that Brahman. And that's why there is an option in the Shastras, Savishesha Rupam, Rupanam. So, for those who cannot reach that Nirvishesha Rupa, so for those who cannot reach that Nirakara Rupa, imagine that Nirakara Rupa of Brahman, they can use Savishesha. So they can use a Rupam, a form. And by imagining the form, we comprehend, we experience with our senses, and then we worship that form. And Upanishad also says, Chinmayasya, Advitiyasya, Asharirinaha. And in this, the Brahman says, Upasakanam Karyartam Brahmano Rupa Kalpanat. For the Upasakas, the form is assumed for that Brahman. Whatever the worship is offered, whether it is Saguna form or Nirguna form, it all reaches that Brahman. And since Saguna depends on that Nirguna Brahman, the Saguna form depends on that Nirguna. That's why it all reaches that. And same thing, Bhagavad Shankaracharya says, Parameshwara form can be assumed for the worship. So he also says that Yata Toya Pravahanam Samudra Paramavadi Tataiva Sarva Marganam Sakshan Nishta Maheshwaraha. So just like all the waters join Samudra, ocean, just like that, if you worship any form with that Brahman, ultimately in the mind, that Paramatma in the mind, it all reaches that Maheshwara. Just like all streams ultimately end themselves in the ocean, just like that, you will reach that Brahman, that Atman. So if we give the male form, we call that Ganesha, Shiva, Indra, Skanda, and so on. If we give Napumsaka form, then we call it Brahman, Atman, Satyam, Chaitanya, Jnana, and so on. We call that Brahman. If we give the female form, we call that Brahman, same Brahman, we call her Srimata, Lalita, Bhagavati, Rajarajeshwari, Jagadambika, Chandrika, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Gayatri, Parvati, and so on. The Tattva does not have a form, but the form we use, male, female, or others, hence the name changes. Just like, for example, we have bangles, necklaces, earrings, various other things, all are gold. Everything is gold, but the form, because of its form, we call it different names. Right? Just like that Brahman is one, and we call, because of the form we see with a trunk, elephant face, we call it Ganesha. With a round shape, it's Linga, Shiva Linga. Shiva, we call it, right? So like that we call. And so this tattva can appear in many forms of Vishnu with Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, wearing yellow garment. For example, Shiva Purana says a similar thing. Vishnu can appear in many forms as Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. That Paramatma Tattva can appear like that, wearing yellow garment. And it can appear reciting Vedas with 4 faces as Prajapati Brahma, seated on Hamsa, or with matted locks, wearing elephant hide, elephant skin, smearing bhasma all over, holding Trishula, riding bull as Shankara. But tatas tejas surupancha nirakaram niranjanam. That tejas, that Chaitanya is nirakara, niranjana, nirupadim, nirihascha mahatbhuta tamarupakam. So that is, there is no upadi for that. And so that is that Paramatma Tattva. And again, if you worship that Paramatma Tattva in female form, she appears as Saraswati, Lakshmi, Parvati, and so on. And for example, in Saundarya Lahari, Bhagavan, Sri Shankaracharya, Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya Bhagavad Pada says the same thing. Giri Girama Hurdevi Druhina Gruhini Ma Gruhinim Agamavido Hare Patni Padmam Harasa Harasa Harasachari Adritanayam Turiya Kapitvam Durida Gama Nissima Mahima Mahamaya Vishwam Brahmayasi Parabrahma Mahishi. So Shankaracharya says, O Queen Consort of Parabrahman, the knower of Agamas call you the goddess of speech, Girama Hurdevi. So you are consort of uh, wife of Durina, Druhina, Brahma. So you are Brahma's wife. They call as Brahma's wife. As Padma, the wife of Hare Patnim Padma. And Adritanaya, some call you as uh, Hara's wife, Shiva's wife. So, but you are the indescribable fourth one, Turiya Kapi. You are only attainable in that Turiya form. So we have three forms, right? So normally uh, awakened form, Swapna, and then deep sleep. But this is the Turiya form where one is attains that state. So that pure Jnana Swarupa, Satchidananda state, that state, one attains that. So same Bhagavati is this plan. And one thing to note here is the Upasana has to be aligned with Shastras. Again, I said we can worship in any forms, but for Mandadhikaris and Madhyamadhikaris, we have to follow the Shastras. We can't just, today we see, for example, Bhagavan's new devatas forming every day. Every year there is going to be new temple, new devata coming through, right? So that's not aligning with the Shastras. We can worship in any form, as long as the worship aligns with the Shastras. And again, in Gita Bhashya, for example, Acharya says that the Bhakti, people say we got Bhakti, but Bhakti has to align with the Shastras. If it's not aligning with the Shastras, if it is against the Shastras, that is not Bhakti. That is Dambachara. So he says that uh, uh, that's what Shankaracharya says. That's why it has to be aligning with Vaidika practices, Vaidika Shastras. Now